All right. It says it's being recorded. We have a little intro. Da, 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 da,
Whatever.
da, da, da. Hey, we'll have an
And
intro at some point,
stop.
maybe. I don't know.
And
Welcome to. Oh,
let's go ahead.
uh,
Uh,
it's just
Go ahead.
welcome to the Cinema and Comics Club. I'm Drew
Yeah.
Atchison.
And I'm Matt Stutzman. It's the Comics and Cinema Club.
We'll fix it in post. But welcome. Today we're just gonna be two nerds talking about movies and roasting probably one of the worst movies ever made. Um, but first things first, just to get some things out of the way, Matt and I are two guys who really like movies and comics, and we've kind of started this thing because we really just want to talk about movies, comics, TV shows, pop culture, a whole lot of different things. We're by no means experts. We have degrees, we have knowledge of it, but we're just doing this for fun. And we're not trying to get on anyone's nerves or anything. So if you're nerds like us, hopefully you stick around and listen to this.
Yeah,
And you,
if it wasn't taken, we would title the show "We're Not Experts on Anything."
yeah,
So, let's just be fully transparent. I have a bachelor's in theater. He has a bachelor's in film.
yep,
Uh, that's just sort of all we have. Like
yeah,
we have some experience in this, but we're just doing this for fun
yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah, we're both aspiring writers who want to break out into the film industry at some point. Hopefully, I read a lot of scripts, so I've read a lot of good ones, a lot of bad ones,
A lot of
a
AI
lot of
ones.
porn ones, which is very interesting, and yeah, a lot of AI ones. But we're just here to have fun and to just talk about movies and stuff and to do some roasting. And the movie in question is the one that probably deserves the most roasting at all. We're going to be talking about The Last
It's
Airbender.
Airbender.
And we're going to kind of be talking about it from the perspective of just being a bad movie and also from the perspective of the show, too.
Yeah, because
Um,
I grew up on the show and he was just introduced to it since it
yeah,
dropped on Netflix. So I think both of our perspectives um, should give you a good idea on why exactly this movie fails, both as a film and as a adaptation of one of the great television shows.
yeah. And I mean, I guess just starting off, let's just sort of saying why it's just a bad movie. It's just a bad movie because it's trying to do too much, and you don't actually feel the character arcs or the character growth or the story. It's just slamming a whole bunch of different elements in and saying, all right, let's throw this at the wall, let's throw this at the wall, let's throw this at the wall, let's see what sticks. And for me, something that really stood out is when you watch a movie, you don't want the characters to feel like characters. What I mean is, you don't want them to feel like somebody sat down and wrote them up on a page. You don't want them to feel bland or lifeless. And these guys felt bland. They felt lifeless. They just felt like characters. They didn't feel like people. And I think that that's something the animated show got right, is that these characters felt human. But here they just felt very bland and lifeless and just there to act. And it just, from that perspective, it was bad. And then the story, again, just too many elements being crammed in, too many stuff it's trying to unwind and uncover. The CGI is awful. Why did it take like four guys to
Six
earthbend a
even.
rock? Yeah, it was six. Yeah, to earthbend a rock at somebody. Like, that's just ridiculous. And also, the big giant tidal wave at the end was silly too. Um,
And the fact is, it didn't go silly enough because uh, to get into this bit of backstory here, the Last Airbender TV show is uh, one of the great television shows of all time. Like, honest to God, it is ranked up there with Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, and all the other great TV shows that people put on their top lists because it is just so well written. Every single characters are drawing, and yet they feel more real than some people can seem in real life, honest to God.
yeah,
And uh, this movie, rather, uh, instead of just even using characters, it felt like they used wooden models. Like it grabbed a bunch of Avatar toys and filmed them in a very lame fan style video in a way that doesn't seem to capture what made the show so special because it is just moving from point to point without the actors going into how certain things impact them. Like take for instance the uh, no, the air temple scene, the the Southern Air Temple, where Aang goes
Mm,
home. He finds Monkey Yatso's skeleton and realizes he's the last of his kind, right?
yeah.
Something in in the show, it just took like a line or two, and you could just feel the weight of all of this weighing down on this poor child who just ran away from home because he was upset, and to
Mm.
wake up 100 years later and come back and discover his home destroyed. You feel that weight in the show, and here it's just one scene. It's just another freaking scene, and then we wrap it up and we move on to the next one. That's
The,
it's
yeah.
not good.
The other thing talking about that scene is also just that there's a lot of scenes that they tell us rather than show us. Like the whole Monkiatsu stuff, he doesn't speak at all in any scene he shows up in, I think. Or if he does, like he doesn't say much. It's usually just Aang having like little flashbacks and Monkiatsu just smiling at him and being kind and stuff. And it just is kind of interesting that they choose to show what they show and choose not to show what they don't show because they have the whole Storm episode, and the whole Storm episode is condensed to literally weird. That's another thing, is all the camera shots were so weird because there's all these really super close-ups where you can literally feel the actor's breath on you coming through the screen. It's like 4D or something. And it's like really weird close-up of Aang just going, I ran away. I had to hide. I didn't face my destiny. And it's like, okay, can we see this? All right, we're not gonna see it. Okay, cool. Moving
And
on.
that's the key problem. This movie was met with the very interesting challenge of taking an entire season of a show and cramming a whole lot of information in a 2.5 hour film. This movie chose the approach of taking all these glass sculptures of episodes, so well crafted and so ornate and work well together, smashing them all together and just briefly filming the pieces and with like a very like an old Super 8 film camera and
Yeah,
just going over everything. And it doesn't go into what made all those pieces work as a whole. And
yeah,
that's it's a bad approach. We'll go into later on about how we would have done this film,
yeah,
but just we're just talking about how it's done
yeah.
here, and it just did
And
not work.
yeah, not even how we would have done it, just like how we think it could have been improved upon. Like just basic little things that could have made it so much better. But again, like here's something to keep in mind. Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated show, it's like 22 episodes, or the first season's like 20 episodes, I think.
20
Something.
around that.
Yeah. Each season is like 18 to 20 episodes. You're trying to put that much into one movie. You have to condense stuff. We get that, but why would you condense some of the most important moments of the show and then not condense something like six guys earthbending a rock? Like,
That
yeah,
rock literally just flew across the screen.
yeah,
It's one.
yeah,
I bet you those people thought that when they were filming this, they thought they were going to do something intensely epic, like make a giant earth-bending fist.
yeah,
That would be amazing. That could take out like a tank, like they did in the show. But instead, it's just literally this one little rock floating by like a little UFO, and then another guy just launches it at someone. It's like,
yeah,
where's the imagination? Where's the effort? Because that's lame.
yeah,
And that should never be said when talking about this franchise. This
mm,
franchise is a lot of things, but it is not lame. It is
yeah,
clever. It is smart. It uses the elements in such a unique way. And not to mention, of all the episodes they chose to do and not do, they chose the fucking prison episode, and they didn't get anything in that right.
yeah.
They have Haru as like a little boy. They have the Fire Nation prison in an Earth camp. There's an
Yeah.
Earth camp. What it makes that a prison?
There's not even any walls. They could have just
There's no
walked away.
walls.
They could have just walked away. They could have been like, "All right, cool guys, early
Just like,
parole. See ya. We're gone."
yeah, we're Earthbenders. Let's just
Yeah.
leave. There's in the show it was a gigantic ship. The only Earth they had was the coal they used to put into the thing's ballast or whatever. That made sense. There's not a lot of earthbending possible because metal bending wasn't invented yet. So instead of doing that and making sense, you instead keep them around in this little place somewhere, and it only takes one speech from a kid to convince them to fight back. You should have been
Yeah.
fighting back this whole time.
Yeah.
Get out, walk outside, go home, you know? It's like, what is this place?
Yeah. I think that part of the problem is that this was at a time in 2010 where TV shows were largely seen as not being as influential as they are now. Now we're in an era where like TV is sort of the future, streaming is the future, so TV shows have to be bigger, they have to be bolder. Whereas here it was like, all right, movies are the future. Movies have to be bigger. Movies have to be bolder. And also, this was literally the same year that
Like a year
the
after the last
yeah,
Avatar, the
yeah, this was
actual.
the year. That's also what's funny with the effects because it's literally the year after the last Avatar came out, and yet the effects look like the way they did. So
This is at $150 million budget too. How much?
yeah,
Let me look up how much Avatar's budget was real quick. But
yeah.
keep talking without me. I'll just
Well, I
look
mean,
it up.
the other thing about this movie too is every 5 minutes when we were watching it, I would just say, "This is so boring. This is
Hmm.
so bland." Like I felt nothing, and that's the other thing. It's like when you watch the show, you feel
Oh,
something. You feel emotions about it. You feel devastated, you feel joy, you feel anger, you feel all this stuff. And I can also attribute that to the actors. It goes back to what I was saying about the characters just feeling like they're being written on a page and they're just reading lines. You don't get any of that emotion. There's a scene in the show where Iroh, who in the movie is called Iro,
Eeyore.
he, he's Ong in Iro and so
Ko- uh,
many others.
Katara and Sokka. Zuko
Suka.
is the only one who's right.
Yeah. I mean, they could have called Zuko Zaka or something, or Ozai
Like,
Oza.
I'll grant them this. It is somewhat more accurate to
Yeah,
Asian cultures since the names in the show are very anglicized. We'll give them that, but
yeah.
it's still not what we're looking for. Let's
No,
just
no.
we want Aang. Come on,
Everybody agrees Ong is like who's
terrible.
Ong? Like, come on. But it's like I could say this about a couple different scenes. One scene that comes to mind is at the very start of the movie when Kantara and Sokka are on their little voyage and they're going fishing. There's no humor with it. It's just like, oh, Katara, be careful where you step. There is the stuff in the water. You have to be careful. And then like you don't get any of the Sokka humor. You don't get any of those fun moments. And also like the scene towards the end when Zhao he gets the moon spirit and he's gonna kill it, and then Iroh shows up. Iroh in the show is like, I mean, he's livid about it. He's like, don't you dare touch that thing. Don't you dare
Whatever
kill
you
it.
do to that spirit, on you ten, let it go now.
Yeah, he was like livid about it. He was literally screaming at Zhao to put it down. If I mispronounced his name, I apologize. Um,
Zhao,
but
it's you.
in the movie, it's literally like, oh no, Zhao, stop, don't do that, put it down. It's not a good thing. And that's literally it. It's just like, don't do that. And they stop. And it's like, well, he doesn't
Yeah,
stop, but you get my gist. Like, why you just rob us of the emotion.
stop, don't come back.
Yeah,
It's literally the same energy. Help, police, murder. That's
yeah,
it, when you have a character like Iroh who has resonated with an entire generation of being the voice of wisdom in our television show. He was our Master Splinter. He is our like uh, Obi-Wan Kenobi, whatever, the wise mentor to grow up with. When you take that and you make him this lifeless little clone, it's not right. You know you're doing incredibly something incredibly wrong. And also I noticed earlier uh, the 2009 Avatar film with the Blue Monkeys that had a budget of 237 million. So
yeah.
it's not too far off.
Yeah,
So
this had a budget of 150, it looks like
yeah,
150 million. Um, which I get that does limit it, but it's still like you have that much money to work with, and you saw how much the other Avatar did. I just think it was Nick trying to get a quick buck, which is a little sad considering current events with Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider and all that stuff coming out.
yeah. So we'll talk about
Which
that another day. But
we'll have to talk about that at some point because it's big, but not the right place here.
yeah,
Um,
we're talking about this piece of shit. We'll talk about
yeah,
that one later.
yeah. Dan Schneider is a completely different piece of shit. But basically, yeah. I mean, that's all I can really say about it is that it's just a very bland, lifeless, boring movie that doesn't really do anything. Like, here's the thing: you have a kid show that is able to be mature, that talks about genocide, that talks about totalitarianism, that talks about indoctrination, that talks about imperialism and war, and shows a kid literally having his face get burned off by his dad, and talks about feelings of not feeling worth and all that stuff. And like, having one of the greatest character arcs for a character of all time with Zuko. And then you have this movie which is just trying to be that. It's such a pale imitation of what the show was.
Yeah, and it's like Zuko is the default standard for a villain redemption arc now. He's the new Vegeta
Mhm,
because it's just is that good. It's
mhm,
that emotional. It's that well balanced.
yeah,
Avatar is just a right balance of good humor with good writing and intense themes that combined as a whole creates one of the great shows. And this movie doesn't really feature a whole lot of that because it's more focused on uh, sh- uh, showing off sets or whatever, just getting from one point to another, showing that they have that they breeze through the show, probably swiping it on their phone, which wasn't a thing when the time
yeah.
this came out. But nonetheless, it's like this really it feels like it's like a surface level viewing of the show, and it's not going into anything. And even then, a surface level of the show viewing of the show would still allow you to come across with some emotion. But the part of the problem is the writing is bad and the acting is terrible because a
Mhm,
performance can save bad writing.
mhm,
But the performances of all these children, beyond the fact that they don't get the races right for a lot of these characters, which we'll get into in a second, yeah, it's like these kids feel like they're in a school play. They don't have
mhm,
the right kind of direction that can survive bad writing.
mhm.
So that's half of what makes a movie great.
Yeah, and I'd argue that that's partly like this is nothing against M. Night Shyamalan, because he does have some good hits. I mean, Sixth Sense will always be a fantastic horror movie. I do kind of like Signs. Split's really good. It's just he's known for not having good movies. And
Yes.
this is one of those movies that sadly is added to his repertoire of not being good. And it could have been great. That's the thing. It could have been great, but it just isn't. And I don't know if blame him for that, blame Nickelodeon for that, blame the producers, or just blame everybody involved with it. The funny thing to me will always be that this movie, well, the biggest funny thing is that in this movie, even though they are set in the Water Tribe, there's a lot of snowflakes in this, a lot more
And
snowflakes than you expect in this.
taking them out of that environment wouldn't exactly fix that, if you know what we're saying.
Yeah, yeah,
It's sad that Katara and Sokka are just these basic white people, but the rest of the tribe feels very Inuit. Those
yeah,
actors match, and Aang is just another white kid. It seemed like I don't know what the actor's actual
yeah.
ethnicity is, but
His tattoo was also always so weird to me.
yeah, it's like it's a bunch of
Yeah,
lines. Can you imagine
yeah.
carving that into your skin with their
Oh, jeez.
that sounds like it hurts
Yeah,
like hell.
the one in the show was literally just a straight line. That makes a little more sense. I imagine that does still hurt, but it's like doing like all the little circles and everything.
Yeah, it's doing it like Maui's tattoos almost. That
Yeah,
must hurt. And
The Rock is Avatar Aang.
yes, could you imagine?
Oh my God, that
It,
would be bad. He'd be the
it,
Boulder.
yes, he would be
He
the
wouldn't be
boulder. I
Aang.
was
He'd
about to
be
say
Avatar Boulder.
I can't do a good rock impression, but the boulder is feels conflicted about fighting another rock man. Why
Then
sounds to me like you're scared, Boulder?
Rock just does the rock face at him, and that's it. He doesn't even say anything.
The boulder's over his conflicted feelings.
And then they both don't lose because The Rock has it
He's
stated in
based
his contract he can't lose in a fight because he's boring. Anyway,
and yeah,
I
he's
think
like
that yeah,
Boulder's based on Macho Man Randy Savage, so imagine like how that would have worked out.
I didn't actually know that. That
Yeah,
does
it's like
make
his
sense.
speaking mannerisms is very much like Macho Man. Let me
Yeah,
tell you something, tough blind bandit. My conflicted feelings, you ain't gonna get in the way of this. Bonesaw's ready.
it does make sense the more I think about it. I never really connected the two. I was kind of like, who, how does
Is
that? And then the more I think about it, like, yeah. Um, if we're comparing, so this is sort of how I rank these, and I haven't seen much of the newest show, the live action one, but
there's several elements of that that are good, but it's still
yeah,
nothing like the original.
I do say that like the animation will always be number one. I think the live action show is probably very far. Like if we're talking like let's say the animated show is at like the peak. The
Hmm.
live action show is sort of at like the base. It's not great, but it's better then the other show, which hasn't even gotten out of bed, is still sleeping, or the movie, I should say. Um, and something I gotta give the show props for is it did cast everyone properly, including
Yes.
Iroh. The guy they got for that was in Kim's Convenience. He was a kindly old grandfather in that show, and in this show, he's a kindly old grandfather. So
Yes.
you
It's a
like
very
you can't go wrong with that.
I can imagine that the original creators stuck aboard for the casting specifically because that is a very good pick in my
Uh,
opinion.
ac I mean, actually, the creators left the show completely.
They left the show, but like they were around for a while, and
Yeah,
I
that's
can only
fair.
imagine they were around for the casting. I was saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, they probably like did the casting and then they saw what the writers were doing and were like,
No thanks.
no, we
Uh,
gotta go. Actually, let's see. Let me see actually real quick when they were casted.
and let me just go into
Okay,
some one thing that
yeah,
I
go.
like about the show. So in the original show, Zuko was exiled because he spoke out against Ozai's plan, or one of his general's plans to use a very new division, 42 or 41, I think. Uh, it's a new battalion, and they were about to be wiped out. The general was planning on them being wiped out. Zuko
Yeah,
was like, "How could you betray them like that?" And Ozai got pissy and burned Zuko's face and exiled him. In the show, they made it so that specific division was Zuko's crew
mhm,
during his exile, which is a unique twist. That's
yeah,
something I really enjoy. That's something that I would want from this, which
yeah,
is a good segue into the idea of what we would do if we were given the reins of this. But
yeah.
I'll let you go first
Yeah,
for that.
real quick before we get into that. So I'm just
Yeah.
reading that before the original creators left, they did say they were committed to create to casting culturally appropriate non-whitewashed casting.
Hmm.
And they did leave the show in 2020 before the casting was announced,
Uh,
but the casting when it did come out, it does seem like they took their like opinion. That's what they took to heart. They're like, look, we can't just do what the movie did. And it's also interesting, Daniel Day Kim ended up being Fire Lord Ozai. He was General Fong, the animated show.
he was
He,
actually, yes.
yeah, the Earth Kingdom, the crazy Earth Kingdom guy.
They
Um,
used they used some actors from the show, I think,
yeah.
and like it gave them new roles, which is a huge step up in my opinion.
Oh,
Like
George
uh
Takei was in
George
there.
Takei, yes,
Yeah,
because he was
Takei.
the prison
Takei.
warden.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
Because he was the prison warden in the original show.
Yeah, and he was called the face stealer for this. And of
Yes,
course,
he's Ko.
yeah,
That's perfect for me.
yeah. Of course, they also brought back the most important character, my cabbages.
My cabbages. And he's literally just that is the same role, and it's perfect. He's like, I
Yeah.
bet you they just called him up one day, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do the cabbages bit again?" And they're like, "Do I?"
Yeah. Yeah, they brought back the most important guy. I also apologize for any names I'm mispronouncing.
Yeah,
English is my first language and I struggle using it. So,
my
um,
cabbages.
yeah, that's still great. I love that they brought him back for that. And again, like I haven't seen the show all the way through. I've seen the first episode and it still seems like they're like
The
I
live
agree with
action
the
is really
complaints
good.
people have. I think that in comparison to the movie, it is a step above. And
Yes.
I find it kind of weird that so many people are like now kind of praising the movie, and I'm just kind of like,
No.
I don't know where you guys are coming from because that movie's not great. It could have been
We are
so much better. And like Matt was saying, but we're now going to segue into just
we're not
saying what
turning
we
this
think
into the
could have
prequels.
been done to make the movie so much better,
Yes.
because there were avenues they could have taken that could have improved upon it so much more. So I don't know if you wanted to go first or I could go first.
I was gonna let
Okay,
you
go
go.
ahead. Go ahead. Oh,
One
okay.
one thing I will
Uh,
say, one thing I will say before you start.
yeah.
We are not turning this movie into the Star Wars prequels, people. Just because something new is out and you don't like it doesn't mean you have to automatically praise something that was already bad. So go ahead.
Yeah. Getting into the show sort of aspect or how we think it could have been done a lot better. It's just from the perspective of basically just that the movie, like I said, slams in so much. And it's hard not to slam in so much because the movie is such a it's a 2 hour film. You don't have that much time to do something. You could make it 2.5 hours. I'd never go for 3 hours because I feel like 3 hour movies are way too long.
Mm.
But I think that what could have been done is you just do it how you did the original show. You start with Katara and Sokka finding Aang. You have the Fire Nation with Zuko and Iroh see the big beam of light in the sky and sail their ship towards it, land. and start hunting for the Avatar. Aang connects with Katara. He connects with Sokka. He is their call to adventure. The story, honestly, is about their call to adventure. You get some hints at Aang's past. You maybe do a flashback or two when he's knocked out, just showcasing that. And then they fly off. They have the first episode happen. They fly off to go to the Northern Water Tribe and find more people there. And so Aang can master the element of water while being chased by Zuko and Iroh. And I would also even have Zhao already be on the boat with them. I think to try and have it be where Zhao comes in, it doesn't work as well as it could have been. I think just having him be on the boat and either being like a lower commander than or like the captain of the ship or something, and then like he tells Ozai what's going on. Ozai's like, all right, you're in charge now. And you build that up throughout the movie, I think that would work a lot better. Like to show Zhao and Zuko's sort of anger towards each other build. The most important thing you need to include in this movie is the storm. You have to include that. And I think how you include that is the midpoint of the movie. That's sort of like the middle part. They have some funny adventures, they do some stuff, they have like one or two funny little encounters, and then something that just breaks Aang and something he can't really like contend with. So they're flying away, and he opens up about the storm. While we also have Zuko opening up about his past, quick little flashbacks that sort of meld together seamlessly, like they did in the show. Aang is willing to embrace that he can't run away from his destiny. They fly to the Northern Water Temple tribe while being pursued by Iroh, Zuko, and Zhao. Maybe Zuko's death happens, or death, I should say, with quotation marks. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. I just think that from that perspective, you just need those big elements. You need the start, you need the storm, you need the ending with Aang accepting the element of water, merging with the spirit, and protecting the Northern Water Tribe, Zhao going where Zhao went into the spirit realm, and then the show ending, or the movie ending, I should say, with Azula being confronted by Ozai. And I think that that's just how they should have done it. They didn't need to cram in as much as they did or do as much as they did. If they had just, I'm even saying like cut the blue spirit. I know the blue spirit's important, but in the sense of the movie, if you can't include the blue spirit, don't force it in because you want to. If you can tell the story in a cohesive way without the blue spirit, do it. If you can't, include them, but make sure it's cohesive because I honestly think just doing it in the way where they travel across the Earth Kingdom and you see them get into some trouble and Aang also inspires stuff, even if it's like a montage. That was the other thing. We never even got a montage of it. Haru was there, Haru was gone. Haru's family was there, Haru's family was gone. There was like something brief, but it was like so quick you miss it. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely how I think they should have done it. And also just make Sokka funny. Make
Yes.
Aang a kid. Have him want to run away from his destiny. Make running away from your destiny a big part of the movie instead of just embracing it. Even like when he has to like merge with the spirit world or with the spirit and like work with them. Maybe make it like that's him accepting his destiny. That's him realizing I can't run away from this anymore. I have to be the avatar. This is the avatar. That to me is how you really sell it home.
So that's all well and good. I would have included the blue spirit too because I
Mm.
feel like that's an important step in Zuko's redemption. That's what I find really interesting. A in my opinion, an important part of that journey. What I would do is similar to what you said. I would have to go into making Sokka funny. You need to cast better actors for this
Yeah.
and get better direction because these kids weren't able to survive bad writing or bad direction, and none of them feel authentic. And that's just half of what makes this film so bad. The other thing too is I would not do the first season method like they said, like they did. I'm trying to be a live action remake of the
Hmm.
show. I would go the Ben 10 route where they
Mm.
make a live action adventure that just happened to take place in the show's universe. Because the show had just ended like a year before this movie came out. So let's just say this is some extra adventure that happened at one point that we never saw. Maybe this is something that happened on Aang's journey, or maybe that there is a big adventure that happened after the fact. Like we could adapt certain comics that came out from that time,
That's fair.
like The Surge. We could have done that in live action,
Yeah.
or the whole Crane City thing setting up for Korra. You know, there are avenues to explore that are more than just doing a live action remake when it comes to
Mm.
Avatar. Because I've been very vocal in the past about I despise how Disney does the live action remakes when it's
Mhm.
just the same thing, but it's lacking all of the heart. That's what this is. It is like Lion King and Beauty and the Beast level of bad of a live action remake, whereas the Netflix show seems more along the lines of uh, Pete's Dragon or something. That's
Mhm.
like fine, but not the original. Still, it's
Yeah.
like they're different from each other, but they are justifiable in their own existence. Like a
Mhm.
better analogy, the 101 Dalmatians remake with Glenn Close. That in and of itself does enough things different so that it can justify its own existence compared to the original.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something that I would do. Just or follow similar paths of the show. If I have to, 100% contractually obligated, do a live action remake of the first show, follow the elements of the current show and just change up enough things so that it justifies its own existence. Because the show does do that.
Mhm.
It doesn't do them well in some regards. Like in the first episode, it talks about it shows the storm right away and all
Yeah.
that, and that's not really
Yeah.
how to use that episode effectively.
That's definitely something I never really agreed with the live action show was how they like just revealed it. I think that that would have been great to build up to, like to slowly put in and slowly build up to the reveal that Aang ran away through flashbacks. Because I think that like the usage of having him, because I've seen clips of like he reunites with Gyatso and they have a very heartfelt reunion. That would have been better if we built up to the storm and realized why Aang felt so guilty about leaving.
And that would have been fine. And elements I would have done the division thing, like I mentioned earlier with Zuko
Hmm.
and Iroh's ship. I would have uh, maybe I maybe we could do certain episodes out of order. Maybe we could go to the actually no, we probably can't do that. I was thinking maybe going to the library, but that's something that's like exclusive for season two.
Hmm.
And that's the beauty of the show. All of the arcs feel like they belong in their specific seasons. There's nothing
Yeah.
can be shuffled around and make the worse, which is what it makes me very grateful. We will never get a sequel for this because I cannot begin to imagine how they would ruin this. We would not get. Uh, we would be lucky to get Toph as a big burly guy. We would be lucky to get Ba Sing Se. We would have been lucky to get
I
Long
don't think
Fang
I don't
or
think I
any of
would have
that
wanted to
nonsense.
see them do the Tales of Ba Sing
We
Se.
wouldn't have gotten that. We wouldn't
I
have
don't
had
think I'd
time for the
want to
Tales of
because
Passing Say.
if we're being honest, if they'd done it, they would have had the guy who was Iroh sing the song, and he's
And
not
that's not
supposed to sing
right.
the song.
And
That's
that's not
not his
nobody's supposed to
song.
sing
It's
that
Mako's
song.
song.
Not even the
So
current actor for Iroh sings that song because that's
yeah,
not supposed. It's not his song. It's
it's
Mako's.
it's Mako's.
And and I we wouldn't have gotten. We'd be lucky to get the library because they mentioned it like 20 fucking times in this movie.
Uh,
But we'd be lucky to get that. We wouldn't got. We wouldn't have gotten Appa's Lost Days. We wouldn't have gotten the arc where he was missing and Aang has to learn to deal with that and they have the big emotional reunion. We wouldn't have had time for that. We would
yeah,
have meet. We wouldn't have time for Suki to introduce her. We wouldn't have had Serpent's Pass. We wouldn't have had that drill bit episode. We'd be lucky to get Azula infiltrating Bossing
yeah.
Say, and that's it. We would not have time to explore all that what made season two so good.
No, I totally agree with everything you're saying. I definitely think that like the way you're coming at it is a little smart. I was trying to play it safe. I still like the way I was saying it, but I think that like making it different is a good thing. It's
Mhm.
just that sometimes you have people who don't always agree with that. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, you have to keep that in mind. You
I
want to
do.
keep it as different as possible while also keeping it similar, which is a challenge, but it's doable. And I think that the way you were describing it can definitely work where it's a remake, but it's not like a full remake. We take liberties, we do different things with it. We have Aang have a different sort of journey. We don't make it a shot for shot remake.
Yeah, and we need to keep the elements that are the most important. Obviously, we would need the build up of Sozin's Comet. We would need uh, Zuko's path to redemption. We would need to keep certain elements, but there are ways to do that in that are more interesting than what they did in this movie for
Yeah,
100% certain with 100% certainty because they're doing that right now in the Netflix show.
yeah,
But even then, but not all of them. They're leaving
yeah.
out Sozin's comment for some reason.
They
And
introduced that at the end of the show.
that's a problem. That's got to be something that's in the middle of Aang's journey. You know, it's
That's
just
fair.
some
That's
that
fair.
gives the ticking clock throughout the entire show.
Yeah.
And the way they're doing Suki, I don't really get because they're without Sokka's sexism to give them a sort of relationship to
Hmm.
build upon and help Sokka grow. Their dynamic now is that Suki was just automatically really horny for him, and that's just like
Yeah,
that's a bit
which
weird
is a weird thing to say that
given the
sexism
children.
needs to. Well, it's weird to say that sexism needs to be a part of the show.
It
um,
it's in
but in a as weird as it sounds, in like a way that shows development, in a way that shows Sokka overcome his sexism, not just like yeah, we need to be sexist or
and I
something.
know the argument it was only in like three episodes and then it was done away in Suki's
Yeah,
thing, but that's sort of uh the sort of idea that Sokka has in his mind of women somewhat being weaker
yeah,
carried over for several episodes until he learned just how strong and how capable Suki is on her own during the
yeah.
Serpent's Pass episode.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
also it's funny
helpful.
to hear people say that because Avatar has probably some of the most powerful and strong and well-written female characters of any animated show, with
Yeah.
Suki, with Katara, with Azula as a villain, and with Toph, who's everybody's favorite. It's just fantastic how they write them, and you need that sort of sense with Sokka to sort of develop and change his mindset because of how strong and how interesting and how well-written they are.
Yeah, it's called character growth. It's how Sokka grows because otherwise he has his humor, he has his strategy. Sokka was a fully developed character
Yeah.
outside of just being sexist, but it's a core challenge for him to overcome, even if it lasted for like 4 or 5 episodes.
Hmm.
It's something that it feels like it's important on his path to growing up. Since he is the oldest of the crew,
Yeah.
it's him growing up feels like an important arc to not do, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I totally get you there.
So it's like it's not like I'm advocating for sexism. It's
Oh
like
no,
no, don't
we're
we're
by
not
no means are. I
we're
just found it funny the way you were saying it.
we are not going to be those idiot right wing podcast hosts. Okay,
Yeah.
we are very much we're very much uh, open to all. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just advocating for good character writing. That's what
Yeah.
I really
That's
want to
all we really
emphasize.
want, and this movie did not have that at all. You,
No, it
you
did
didn't
not.
get anything like that from this movie or from anything else along these lines. The one thing I will say that's good about this movie and about the live action show, it made the writers and the creators create Avatar Studios. So
Yes,
now we have more Avatar content on the way, including the movie, which is coming at some point.
2025, I think.
Yeah, next year. I think they released like a poster or something.
Yeah, they're at least they're doing a Kyoshi movie, a Zuko movie, and like another I think maybe a Korra movie, but I'm not sure.
That would be interesting to see how they do that.
Yeah,
I'd be all
and
for it, but I'd just be curious. But yeah, they released some concept art of them all grown up, which looks kind of cool.
yeah, that's nice. I can't wait to see that. That's
Yeah,
gonna be like young Justice coming back. I
yeah,
was with these kids when I was younger than they are, so it's gonna be nice to
yeah.
see them grow up.
It is funny though, because I look up Avatar movie animated and I just see the blue people.
Yes.
So in images, it's just all Avatar, Avatar, Avatar.
Uh,
But yeah,
if there's one thing that I can say about this film that's nice, because I do want to get this across, I do think that every bad film has
mhm,
one thing, one element that can be praised, be it good cinematography, good camera work, good costumes and effects. If there's one thing that I'm forced to say about it, costumes are nice.
yeah.
Like I can like
I mean,
it's not much, but it's
no,
one good thing, you know.
yeah. I mean, I don't always agree the same. I think sometimes bad movies are just bad, and there's not always. I mean, I will say there are caveats to some bad movies, and that there are some moments where bad movies can just be so bad they're funny. I didn't get that
Mhm.
with this. This was so bad I was bored out of my mind. But I do agree that the costumes were nice, and
Yes,
that
that's
for
that.
for being a 2010 film, even though the CGI is not great, there are some moments where I thought it was actually kind of decent.
Some moments, yeah, like
Some,
they don't take the avenues that they should have, like have a giant
yeah,
koi
not
fish monster instead of
um,
just a fucking
yeah,
tidal wave, but whatever.
or I mean,
The Rock, yes.
Appa looking the way he is, he with
Seriously,
the
what is
big
with Appa's
long
face?
legs. I don't know, or his legs. I don't know why they did his legs like that. He
No,
literally is just a bison. No, his
his
legs
legs
were
were
like big,
fine.
long. No, his legs were like long and
No, no,
scaly
no.
and stuff.
It's like I know the shot you're thinking of. It's when Appa is like carrying a bunch of Water Tribe children on his feet, so it makes his feet look scaly like that. But normally they're fine. Like if you look at another shot of it, his feet are normal. You know.
No, I'm looking at a picture of them. They still look freaky, but that's just me.
I don't know, but nonetheless, his face is what's really getting me because it's a bunch of black in one shot with a bunch of with a couple of his eyes. It's like, are you trying to look like a Spirited Away character here? Because
Might be. They might have been trying to.
this is less My Neighbor Totoro and more
Yeah,
Spirited Away monster.
just put it in the chat. Hopefully it loads.
Let me have a look.
If it doesn't, then
It's like I know what you were thinking of because I've seen that
um,
too, but man, open
is
the
it
chat.
loading? If it doesn't, let me try another one.
I can't open my chats when we're
That's
recording,
okay.
but that's okay. I'll just
Oh,
look in a second.
that's fine.
Oh,
It just
here we go. Computer is dumb.
yeah,
It's
technology.
loading
So
a sec. It's loading. So just go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I just think that from a movie's perspective, it's not great. It could have been so much better. And I definitely think from a show perspective, the animated show is just always going to be the best. You can't compare it. So
Yeah, like there's no comparing it. The animated show is one of the all-time greats for a lot of good reasons. And if you haven't seen it for some reason, you're one of two people who have to live under a rock.
yeah,
Just watch it. It's
yeah,
life-changing, honest to God.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, I think that that covers all of our bases for this, and I feel like we've made our point pretty clear.
Yes.
Um,
So thank you everybody for joining us for the first
yeah,
official episode of the Comics and Cinema Club, and we hope to see you again next time. So
we really
yay!
do. Yeah,
Outro music, yay!
yeah. Thank you guys
Copyright
for
free.
watching. Yeah,
Thanks for watching,
this
everyone.
is the copyright free music. See you guys.